Hello and welcome to Talking Pharmaceuticals, an interview series brought to you by Making Pharmaceuticals and Distributing Pharmaceuticals. I'm Victoria Emerton, Conference Director at the events, which next take place in April 2025. And in the lead up, I'll be joined by experts from UK Pharma to share insights, opinions and practical advice, providing a fresh perspective on key challenges and opportunities in the industry and to look ahead to their involvement in the events. I'm delighted to be joined today by Adrian La Porta from the Institution of Chemical Engineers and also Technical Director at Bryden Wood, and Claire MacLeod, also from IChemE, and Grand Challenge Lead at the CPI's Medicines Manufacturing Innovation Centre. Welcome both of you to Talking Pharmaceuticals. It's a delight to talk to you today.
Yeah, thanks very much for having us.
So, IChemE, together with other groups, are going to be doing a workshop at Making Pharmaceuticals in April called Making Pharmaceuticals Sustainably, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So how do you think the transition to net zero is going in pharmaceuticals?
Yeah, so I think there's been a lot of good progress in the last maybe 5 or 10 years, and some of the things I can think about as examples are changing over propellants in some of the inhaled medications, and that's made a huge difference, especially at the point of use with the patient. And then there's been other technical innovations as well, so moving towards continuous manufacture instead of batch manufacture. And some of the other process intensification technologies have helped start to reduce the impact. But I think there's still a long way to go, and that's something that we need to discuss, how we can take those technologies further.
I'd agree, Claire. And what we've seen, I think, is the topic's taken much, much more seriously than it was, say, 10 years ago. And certainly in big pharma, we're seeing really radical change, particularly in areas like switching to green electricity for manufacturing sites. But as Claire says, there is a lot of work to do, because there is a danger that we just provide green electricity to inherently inefficient and polluting processes. So that there's some sort of root and branch work to do to really decarbonize properly, if you like.
Indeed, and distribution of pharmaceuticals is also an area that sustainability is featuring heavily in. But considering environmental threats overall, is pharmaceutical manufacturing insignificant? Is it just a sort of pimple in this field, or is it making change here going to have a big impact?
I think it's surprising, because what the patient sees in their hand is, it's pretty small. It's maybe a blister pack of tablets or an inhaler, but actually the number of processes that are required to take that all the way back to the starting materials, that's when the environmental impact really starts to add up. It's a very solvent hungry process, especially the API manufacture. So there's a lot of kind of hidden waste, I think, in the pharmaceutical industry that's not completely obvious at point of use. And then also when you're talking about steriles or the manufacture of the product itself, those are done in quite energy intensive facilities, so the use of clean rooms and so on. So yeah, although it doesn't look very much, it's actually a surprisingly high impact.
Yeah, I think famously the pharmaceutical industry produces more greenhouse gas emissions than the automotive industry, although the source of that is getting a little bit old. It is used quite a lot, and I think it helps people understand that the impact really is significant. And the other thing I think we can say about that is it's an industry that can decarbonize relatively easily. It has the capacity to do so without really impacting its business model, compared to some other heavy industries where it's much harder to decarbonize. There's almost like a moral imperative to do it, for us to do a good job when we're looking at making and distributing pharmaceuticals, so that we're not using any more resources or energy than we really need to.
Absolutely, and I think that principle needs to be applied across all sectors, doesn't it? And I guess when anyone's talking about changing processes, there's always this question about cost. So will making pharmaceuticals more sustainably make healthcare more expensive?
I think it's an incumbent on us as people working in the industry to make sure that that's not the case. So when we founded the IChemE, IMechE, ISPE group, we set ourselves a mission statement, and it was to decarbonize whilst improving access to medicines. And cost is a really good, really big part of access to medicines. So it's quite difficult to measure in a way, because in the same time that we're trying to make the transition to sustainable manufacturing and distribution, we're seeing lots of new drug types coming into the market. And so things like the increasing potency and increasing medical effectiveness of drugs means that we may need less material to actually treat a patient. So I'm confident that we can, if we do a good job of redesigning our processes and our distribution systems, that overall the benefit that pharmaceuticals bring to healthcare won't increase in cost.
Yeah, and I think it's often the case, probably not always, but often the case, that implementing a process change or a product change, or bringing in new technology, as well as being more sustainable, it will also reduce the cost. And you can think of examples such as different formulations that allow distribution to be not in the cold chain, for example. So that's a technology change that affects both the cost and the sustainability impact. So there's lots of examples like that show that the sustainability and cost improvements go hand in hand.
So that all sounds really positive, but people might just say, why don't we just wait for greener drugs to come down the pipeline? Anything developed from now onwards could be greener, and never mind what's gone before.
I think it's a question of timing. We've been talking about green chemistry and redesigning drug synthesis routes, for instance, for small molecules for a long time. And we're still seeing drug products coming to the launch phase, which use a lot of organic solvents and are not particularly environmentally friendly. So absolutely, we need to do those things, but they won't come through onto the market in sufficient time to make the transition to sustainability. So we have to do those bring those greener drug manufacturing methods on board. But in the meantime, we have to take the processes and the products that we have and make them much more sustainable.
Yeah, because although there's lots of new products coming through, and particularly ones that increase targeting and towards personalized medicine, I think the majority of the medicines that patients are taking are from old products and running on relatively old processes. So that kind of lag period that the technologies and the processes people are working on in research and development parts of the pharmaceutical companies, we're probably not going to see that for another maybe 5 or 10 years, depending on how quickly those go through the clinical pipeline. So yeah, we've got to factor in that clinical development into our technology development timelines as well.
Sure. So looking to sort of optimize all this goodwill in this area, people want to make change. What can people in the pharmaceutical manufacturing and distribution areas do to accelerate the transition?
I think one point is around sharing information, sharing best practice, sharing data as well. So there's lots of this information that's pre-competitive. So what are the opportunities to share between pharmaceutical companies, between design companies, between technology companies, so that one piece of best practice that's implemented in one place can be sort of easily replicated as possible. So I think that's probably the main thing I would ask of this community.
Yeah, I think that's spot on, Claire, and I guess that's the raison d'etre of the voluntary group between IChemE, IMechE, and ISPE that was formed a few years ago. You could sum it up by in some way by get involved, and as you say, sharing best practice in a pre-competitive way will help everybody. And people can start by coming to our workshop at Making Pharmaceuticals.
Fantastic. We've got quite a lot of content on sustainability in pharmaceuticals actually at the event this year, and your workshop is a key part of that. So we're looking at distribution, clean labs, all sorts of green initiatives. So Adrian's going to be taking part in that workshop, Making Pharmaceuticals, called Making Pharmaceuticals Sustainably, together with Adam Hawthorne from ISPE and Claire Edwards from IChemE. So anybody who is registered to attend the event is welcome to come along to that workshop. So attending the exhibition and the conference is free. Registration is open at makingpharma.com. The conference and workshops programme is also live on the website, so you can see what's going on and plan ahead. And we look forward to seeing you, Adrian, and your colleagues at the Coventry Building Society Arena on the 29th and 30th of April. Thank you very much, Adrian and Claire, for your time today.
Thanks very much, Victoria.
Thank you.